Welcome to part two of the Relationship Goals series, and I want to highly encourage you. If you missed last week, go back and watch it on one of our digital platforms, wherever you find and access our content. I want to encourage you to go back and grab that. If you're with us last week, I kind of got up on our business a little bit, and I challenge us to recognize that in every relationship, we are the starting point, right? Kind of what we said is, before I look at you, I'm going to say it's not you, it's me, right? And actually mean it. Today, I'm going to give us the opportunity, the right to say it's not me, it's you. And that's okay. We're going to do that for a week. In fact, I said last week I'm going to challenge this a little bit. I'm going to push this a little bit, but don't worry, there's 4 weeks. And so this is kind of our day to kind of look at the other person a little bit. It's going to be okay, I promise, as we walk through here together. We're going to talk on the topic of boundaries, And if this message today is encouraging for you, is helpful to you, if you want to dig into it a little bit more, I want to recommend the resource the book by Henry Cloud called Boundaries. And it's a book he wrote several years ago, New York Times bestseller. Wonderful, wonderful book. A lot of the content I'm getting from the messages coming out of that. Cannot encourage enough. He even has several different spin-offs for leadership and parenting and marriage and different things. I would encourage you to go and grab that. If you're here today and you're dating and you're having a hard time breaking up, Henry Cloud also wrote another book called Necessary Endings. So I just want to throw that out there and help you with it. Maybe don't write it down right now. It could be awkward, but necessary endings. All right. If you're ready today, why don't you say I'm ready? Come on. I'm ready. As I was thinking about boundaries this week, I was thinking back to when Katie and I had our 10-year anniversary just a couple of years ago. A little bit more than a couple of years ago. And we went on our 10-year anniversary trip. We went to the island of St. Lucia and just had a wonderful trip. But yet, here in America, whenever you're driving on the roads, you never think about this boundary that we have on the roads called guardrails, right? You just assume if you ever need them, they're probably going to be there, and they're probably going to prevent you from going off of the road. They're going to prevent you from harm. Whenever we landed in St. Lucia and the resort shuttle picked us up to take us across this volcanic and mountainous island, we began to be really concerned about the guardrails. Are you following me? If you've ever driven on one of these islands, you probably know what I'm talking about. 2 lanes on the road there is equal to 1 lane here. And quite often, as we were driving across this island that has seen hurricane after hurricane over the years, there was erosion everywhere. And so one of the lanes would often be missing. And where there was a missing lane, there would be, let me use my air quotes, guardrails. They weren't really guardrails like we would think. It was very cheap, fragile, thin pieces of wood. I will not use the word lumber. They were just really, really fragile, floppy little pieces, and they were painted yellow, and they'd somehow be like adhered to the side of the road where the erosion was. And God bless Katie, she already gets car sickness as we were going up and down and around these winding roads, and we'd be driving. And our driver, who was fully confident in what he was doing, we'd be going around these blind turns. You could not see anything on the other side of what was coming, and he'd be passing cars while there's already erosion on the road. It's like, what are you doing? Like, how many of you know, like, our prayer life grew, like, on this trip? I mean, we're like, God, please save us. It became very clear that these guardrails were never going to stop us if we hit them. They were just there as a warning. They were there as a bit of a sign of, this is where the road ends, and this is where the cliff begins. One wrong turn, one little bit of a move, and we were gone into oblivion, right? I will talk today about this idea of guardrails, maybe even boundaries of kind of marking where one thing ends and another thing begins. We have all kinds of boundaries in our life if you think about it. If you abide by a budget, if you abide by a budget, that's a boundary, right? You're telling your money where it's going to go and where it's not going to go. You don't want to overspend. You don't want to find yourself in a place of debt. That's a boundary. If you use a budget at work, you want your money to go where you tell it to go because you want your sales and your profits to rise up, right? It's a boundary you've set. Maybe you abide by a schedule. You have a schedule that kind of tells you where you need to be each and every day. Maybe you use it at work so you know like what sales calls are most important. Maybe you even have a schedule for your daily life. You got kids all over the place and you don't want to leave a kid, right? You're supposed to pick them up and get there on the other side of town and you forgot where they were. You need a schedule. It's a boundary. And we have boundaries in all these different areas of our life, but perhaps one of the most important areas where we need a boundary, we often forget it, and it's in the area of relationships. We need boundaries in our relationships. It's incredibly important. Let me give you a working definition today for a boundary. It's simply this: a boundary defines ownership. It's really important. Ownership of where I end and you begin. A boundary defines ownership of where I end and where you begin. When I know my boundary, I know what I'm responsible for and I know what I'm not responsible for. You know what I'm talking about? This is where I have control and this is where I do not have control. We talked about that a little bit last week. I even said for there to be a healthy we, there always has to be a healthy me, right? Otherwise, I'm going to bring contamination into the relationship. You've got to know your boundaries if there's ever going to be a healthy you to bring into a relationship. The problem with not defining boundaries is so often we have people that are trying to own our property, right? And so often we spend so much time trying to own somebody else's property as well. We need to have boundaries of where I end and where you begin. Boundaries also let us know what we're going to allow in and what we will not allow in. Now, I know some people might say, well, this doesn't sound very Christian. Like, didn't Jesus love everybody? And yes, he did. Jesus would spend countless hours with the masses, right? He'd preach till way way into the night. He'd do healings and he loved everyone, but he had different levels of access for everyone. He might spend time with the masses, and then he'd pull aside with the 72. He would have 72 disciples. Now some people are like, wait, 72 disciples? I see the picture. There's only 12. Well, he had a 12, right? And he would pull. That was kind of a different level of access. He'd often pull the 12 aside and he'd speak to them, be like, I preached to all these guys, but they're not going to hear it. They're not going to understand it. You can go and follow up and help them understand it. But then he even pulled aside with the three. From the 12, he'd pull three. It was Peter, James, and John. And he'd pull aside and he'd give them a different level of access than he gave everybody else. I don't know if this is helpful or not, but you can kind of look at it like, on Facebook, we have all these friends, right? So Jesus had his Facebook friends. That was kind of the masses, the 72, right? Instagram is where only the people that really like you follow you, right? That was the 12. And then you got some people that might text you or direct message you. That was the 3. I don't know if that's helpful for anybody, but you got to break it down a little bit. There are levels of access. You need to have levels of access in your life. Only some people get to come backstage. Are you with me? Only some people get to sit on the front row. Other people need to be up in the balcony. Come on, somebody. You can amen if you want. Some people need a parking pass because they need to leave their mess outside. Come on. There's different levels of access that we need to give folks. And just to be clear, we are not rejecting people. We are rejecting behavior. You with me? Not everything gets access into our lives. We've got to know where I end and where you begin. Why is this important? Solomon, as you might guess, has some wisdom for us. He says this, above all else, guard your heart. Guard your heart. So above all the other concerns you have in your life, guard your heart. What's he talking about? He's talking about your soul. That's your mind. That's your emotions. That's your desires. Above everything else that you're going to put a guardrail, a boundary up in your life, you need to guard your heart. Why? Because everything you do flows from it. And if you allow it into your life, what's going to happen? Eventually it's going to come out in your life. You allow some junk in, there's going to be some junk out. Jesus would even say, out of the overflow of the heart, what? The mouth will speak. The things you're letting into your life in time are going to come out in your life as well, right? There's an old Southern saying, or maybe you know it, right? You get with the pigs, what? You're going to get muddy. Come on. Or you lie down with dogs. Come on, you can finish it. You get some fleas. Now, when we did this for the Dream Team service, 2 people knew what I was talking about, and they were both from the South. And I was like, all right, you're with my Southern. There's something about Southern sayings, right? It's true. The things we allow into our life are going to come out in our life. And I know it sounds selfish, and some people might be like, well, wait, what about last week? You talked about being selfless. This sounds incredibly selfish. Like, is there a difference here? And there is a difference. There's a difference between selfishness and stewardship. You follow me? I've got a watch on today. It's not necessarily an expensive watch. You could go online and grab it yourself. It doesn't have much extrinsic value, but it has a lot of intrinsic value to me because Katie bought it for me. She bought it for me when the watch she had bought before that, she bought me a watch whenever I graduated from Duke University. She bought that for me. It kind of wore out, and then she bought this one for me. Both watches, working or not, have a lot of value to me. If you ever said, can I borrow one of your watches? And I said yes, it would be my expectation that you would steward this gift because it's very important to me. Are you following me? I wouldn't expect you to go wear it out to the job site where you're going to be working on construction and it's going to get broken or it's going to get beat up. I would expect that you wouldn't take it swimming or boating with you. I would expect that you're not going to take it to play a little backyard football, right? Come on, because it's important to me. I've given it to you and you must steward it. There's something of great value here on the earth that the creator of the universe has placed here and it has great value. Do you know what it is? It's you. And God expects you to steward your soul. Why? Because you have impact and influence on so many people every single day, and He expects you to steward over your soul. This is not selfish. This is called stewardship. He's giving you something of great value, and He expects you to shepherd over it in a meaningful and in a wonderful way. It's critical. Let me go back to what I said before. We are not rejecting people. We are rejecting behavior. Let me give you a little illustration to help you understand this. If you come to our house, we've got this dining and kitchen area in our house, and on the back side of it, there's a sliding patio door that leads to the back patio, leads to outside. It's a boundary between what's outside and what's inside. Are you with me? And let's just say, for just hypothetical, that sometimes our kids like to bring stuff from the outside inside. It doesn't necessarily have to happen. Let's just hypothetically, right? It's snowing, it's raining, it's been muddy outside. Maybe it's been, we've cut the grass and our kids are outside with the sprinkler, whatever. We also have a dog, by the way, who likes to, do his thing outside. So again, hypothetically, let's say our kids are outside playing, doing their thing, and they want to bring things outside, inside, okay? Katie and I are sitting nearby. What do you think we're going to do? We jump up, we're like, whoa, 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 whoa. That needs to stay outside. You can leave it outside. Now, am I rejecting my child? No. I love my kids. I want them inside the house God gave to me to steward over, to love. But they're not bringing their mess inside. Are you with me? That they've got to leave outside. I will come outside and I will help you get the mud off. I will help you get the boots off and the jacket off and all the dirt and all the grass, whatever, anything the dog might have left in the backyard. I'll help you get that off, but we're going to leave it outside. Look at somebody around you, say, leave it outside. Come on, find somebody. Leave it outside. I'm not rejecting you, but I will reject what's on you. I will reject that behavior. I'll go outside and help you, but we're going to leave that outside. Now, let's be clear. We're not deleting people from our lives. We're not kicking people out of our lives. That's not what this is about. We do love everybody. We want you to come in, but the arrogance, you're going to leave it at the door. You can come in, but that unforgiveness, leave it outside. You can come in, but that manipulating spirit that you bring in, you can leave that outside. You can come in, but your outburst of anger, you're going to leave them outside. They're not coming into my soul. That passive aggressiveness, come on, the underhanded comments, right? Someone's like, I got an in-law. That sounds a lot like them, right? Come on, it's okay. It's okay. Being a little honest today. You can leave that outside. You can come in. But that controlling spirit that you bring in, you're going to leave that outside. I don't have room for that in my heart. I want to help us with the importance of boundaries today. We need to set up some boundaries of things that are going to get left outside and some things that are going to get brought in. And to do that, I want to talk about two things. Partly, I want to talk about the reasons why we often don't set boundaries. We need to recognize it and see if we can see them pop up in our life this week. But I also want to talk about some boundaries we need to set up. If you guys are ready, I'm here. Say I'm ready. Come on. Give me a little bit of talk back. All right. Number one is simply this. Boundary we need is, or not a boundary we need. One of the reasons why we don't set boundaries, we have a superhero syndrome. Superhero syndrome. What does that mean? It means I want to swoop in and save you from any harm that might be coming your way. I want to swoop in and save you from any distress that I can foresee. You've lived a little bit, right? And so you can see things that are going to come about in people's life, and you want to swoop in and save them. And yet Paul says this. He says, don't be misled. You cannot mock the justice of God. You will always, come on, say it back with me, always, one more time, always, you will always harvest what you plant. You're always going to harvest what you plant. The Bible will often give us these spiritual laws we need to recognize. Now, we have natural laws in the world, and those we do recognize. One of them is called gravity, right? You don't get to wake up and say, you know what, I just don't feel like gravity today. It's not my favorite, natural law, and so I'm going to go jump off of whatever I want to jump off of. It doesn't matter how high it is. You don't get to do that, right? It's a natural law. Age, come on, it's a natural law. You're going to slow down a little bit. You're going to lose a bit of a step. It happens to even the best kickers on the planet, right? We saw it this year. Come on, Colts fans, we okay? Age happens to everybody. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. There's spiritual laws that God has, and it doesn't matter if you're like, well, I don't like that one. You will always harvest what you plant. And one of the reasons that we like to have this superhero syndrome is we want to swoop in and save people when we don't like what they've planted because we know the harvest that's coming. You with me? You don't get to plant kale and get strawberries, although that would be amazing, wouldn't it? You're going to get kale. That's what you planted. And so often we like to swoop in and save people. Like, I don't want you to harvest this thing in your life. I know how much it's going to hurt you, and I want to swoop in and save you. Now, this is understandable if you have a child, right? They're going to knock off something hot off the stove, and you want to swoop in and save them so they don't get burned. They don't recognize what they have planted, right? Now, this is fine for a child, but when they're 30 years old, come on, you've got to let them feel the sting of harvesting what they've planted. You might be like, I don't understand why they keep doing this thing. Because you've been swooping in and saving them. And they need to recognize that this is what they have planted, and they're going to get this kind of a harvest. You've done that, right? That's how you learned in some different areas. Come on, you're like, that's my boy. Yeah, but it's time for him to be a man. You need to stop reloading the Nintendo account, right? I love Nintendo. My 7-year-old plays it all the time. 30s, are you following me? Come on. Where do I end and where do you begin? You're not a superhero. It's not your job to swoop in and save them. Oftentimes we don't set that boundary because we don't like what we see that they're going to harvest. Here's the next one. It's the what if question. The what if. So what if I set this boundary in my life? What if they reject me? What if they get mad at me? What if they ramp up the control? What if they ramp up the manipulation? What if they bring in their guilt? Which, by the way, is why we need boundaries. Right? Because they're trying to step in and own our properties. I love you. You can come in, but that behavior, you're going to leave it outside. Solomon says this, the fear of man will prove to be a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is kept safe. I think a lot of us, we'd be like, well, I'm not, especially guys, like, I ain't afraid of no one. What are you talking about, afraid of man? That's not me. That's not what Solomon's talking about here. He's talking about what's happening internally with decisions we're making. It's that person that calls you and their name comes up on caller ID and you don't want to answer it, but you answer it because you're afraid of the fallout if you don't. Are you with me? The guilt that's going to come in, the emotional onslaught that's going to come on, the manipulation if you don't answer the phone. I know you were home. Why weren't you answering? I know when you were free. You're afraid. It's the person you can't say no to. Like you really want to, but you don't know how to say no to them. And there's always this what if. We live beneath the weight of the what if. The boundary says, I love you, but I know where I end and where you begin. If you want to come into my property, you're going to have to leave the anger outside because you're not bringing that around my kids. You with me? You're putting up some boundaries. You're not bringing the manipulation and the lies into my heart. I'm not rejecting you, but that behavior, you got to leave it outside. I've got to stay healthy, and it's not for me alone, right? You have a stewardship responsibility. I have a wife, and if I'm letting stuff into my soul, I can't care for her. If I'm letting stuff into my soul, I can't take care of my kids. If I'm letting stuff into my soul, I can't take care of you guys. If I'm letting stuff into my soul, I can't take care of friends. And all of you have relationships. All of you have influence and impact. And if you're not stewarding the soul that God gave you, what's coming in is going to come out. I'm not rejecting you, but you've got to leave that outside. So I've got to guard my heart. Here's the third reason why we don't set up boundaries. We're misunderstanding hurt versus harm. We're misunderstanding hurt versus harm. There's a big difference here. If I go to the gym and work out, right, and I really go after, what's going to happen? It's going to hurt. Right? You ever notice like the more delayed it is, like the worse off you are? Like if you don't hurt the next day, you're like, oh boy, it's coming. Tomorrow's going to be really bad. That's a good hurt. You need that hurt. If you go into the gym and you pick up a weight that's too heavy for you, you drop it on your foot, that's harm. Very different, right? Hurt versus harm. There's a verse I showed us last week. I want to bring it back again. It says this, faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. If there's someone who's always flattering you, always patting you on the back, be wary because they're probably not really for you. We need some people around us that are willing to be honest enough, right, to wound us because they love us. It's a good hurt. It's not actually harm. They might say, I don't know if you see this when you do this or say this, but you're kind of sabotaging yourself. You can't get out of your own way. I'm afraid if you keep up that behavior, you're gonna lose your job. I'm afraid if you keep up that flirtatious spirit, you're gonna lose your spouse. Like there's a different direction you need to go. They'll come outside with you, right? Come hell or high water, they're gonna get the mud off you, but you're not bringing You're not bringing that in. We need friends like that. Often we misunderstand hurt versus harm. You go to the dentist, and it can be uncomfortable. Maybe you'd even say it hurts, but it's a good hurt, right? You need to keep going. If you allowed the hurt of the dentist to keep you away in time, there would be great harm, correct? Teeth would be black and falling out, and you'd be in all kinds of trouble. It's a good hurt. Don't let the hurt that could come because of a boundary hold you back from putting up the boundary. Are you with me? You're not there to hurt them, or you're not there to harm them, there might be a wound from a friend. I remember several years ago, I had a pastor in my life, and we had kind of talked about this before, and so he was coming back around on a conversation. How many of you like those conversations? Like he was coming back around. I don't know if you heard this the first time. And he said this. He said, Chad, he said, I know you give regularly to the church, but you're not tithing. And if you don't start tithing, God can't do all that he wants to do in your life. How many of you think I wanted him to say that again? Like, come on, like that just felt so good. Like you just repeat that back. I mean, one more time. Come on. He was someone that loved me. He was someone that cared for me. He was not saying, Chad, the church needs your money. That's not it. Like he knew what I made. He was like, you're fine. Like that's not it. Thank you. What was he saying? There's a principle, there's a spiritual law, right? You reap what you harvest. And you're not trusting God. And if you're not trusting God, if you're not obeying God, then God can't give you all the blessings that he wants to bring into your life. And can I just tell you, it hurt, but it was a good hurt. It was a wound from a friend that I went and got. It sent me to like go to my knees before God and open up the scriptures and be like, God, I think I've been seeing you wrong here. Help me to see you. And God, it was like these spiritual blinders came off when I had this wound from a friend. We need those kind of wounds. I would not be standing in front of you today if I didn't get that wound from a friend. Years ago, I mean, it just started opening up blessing after blessing in my life that led to where I am today. And you need someone like that. But you may also have to be that for somebody else. Your hurt to them might be the hurt they need. It might be the wound they need to propel them into the future. God might have placed you in their life to put up that boundary so they can recognize what they need to do in their life. So often we're afraid that we're going to harm them, and so we don't step in and put the boundary. You can't confuse hurt and harm. You need to put up the boundary. You need to do what God has called you to do. Don't let the hurt that could come hold you back. You might be like, well, that's going to be hard to say. Yep. It's going to be really hard for them to hear that. Yeah, it probably is. But it's a good hurt. It's a hurt that they may need. It might be a wound from a friend that they need to push them forward. It could be the very key to their healing that they are needing. All right, there's some boundaries. There's some reasons why we don't set up boundaries. There's some boundaries we do need to set up. Some boundaries we need to set up. Here's the first one. It's simply this. It's the boundary of control. The boundary of control. There's a couple different ways that control comes into our life and tries to kind of take hold of our own property. It can come in covertly. It can come in overtly, right? The covertly would kind of be like sort of like a passive aggressive sort of, oh, so you're not coming to Thanksgiving again. It's fine. And you know it's not fine. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's 2 years in a row, huh? Like that's, and so it's just sort of like, no, just come out and say it. You're disappointed we're not coming. Like, come out and say it. We'll have a talk about it, but you're not bringing the control in. Are you with me? So another way can be a little bit more overt. It can come out with words. Somebody's going to tear you down and beat you up. Or maybe it could even be physical. There might be some physical control that's happening in your life. If that's happening, can I just tell you right now, like that's not okay. You need to hear that. If there's physical control happening in your life, that's not okay. It's not going to get better. It's not normal. You need to tell somebody on your team because we'll help you. I just want you to hear that. That's control. You need to put up a boundary to immediately, and it's not just going to get better. Somebody needs to hear that. It's not just going to get better. No, it's not. You need to put up that boundary, and we can help you do that. There's all these different levels of control that'll come into our lives, but we've got to be willing to say, no, I'm setting this boundary. You're not going to control me. Some of you have seen this, right? You've been newlyweds, and she says to you, hey, could you go talk to your mom? Which is a nice way of saying, would you please put up a boundary? She's sticking her nose where it doesn't belong, right? Come on. And I know some mamas are like, but that's my boy. I know. But I've seen some marriages that would have made it if family would have just kept out of it. Come on. There's some boundaries that need set up. It's a boundary It's a boundary of control. Well, if we're not going to have control, what do we want? We want people that are going to be empowering us. They're going to remind us of Philippians 4:13. You can do all things through Christ who gives you the strength. You need people around you that are not going to limit you and hold you back. No, they're going to elevate you and accelerate you. They're empowering you. They believe in you. They believe God's best for you, and they're going to lift you up no matter what you're walking through. It's the boundary of control. Here's another one. That's the boundary of negativity. The boundary of negativity. Come on, you know this. I don't need more negativity in my life, right? Statistics already show that 80% of the thoughts that are coming into my mind are negative. I don't need somebody to add to it. I don't need glass half empty people around me. No, I need people of faith. You with me? Like people that are going to come in and bring some life-giving nature into our hearts and into our lives. I think some people want us to be the 2010 version of us, right? Because that's where they still are. And so they want to pull us back. And I can't go back. I got to move forward, right? God's got something for me. God's got far more for your destiny and for your future to be stuck in negativity. That's why Paul says this. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths. Come on, we got to start thinking about what's coming out of our mouths. We're going to be held accountable for the words that we are using in our daily lives. And can I just say this? It doesn't even matter how old somebody is. Come on. You can speak to somebody that's your age or older, and your words still hurt. Think about the words that you're using. Don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. I think Paul's telling us that when we're in relationships, we've got to be so committed to them that we know what the person needs to hear. We know the encouragement they need to hear, and they've committed to us enough. They know the words that we need to hear. We need people around us that are going to speak life and speak hope into us. They're not just going to be negative and always bringing us down. Here's the third and final one. We'll land the plane with this. It's the boundary of fear. The boundary of fear. And this is not an exhaustive list. It's just kind of there to get us started. And I think we've all had people. We've met people. Maybe we let them get a little bit too close, and they bring some of the mud into your heart, and it begins to come out in your life. And I think this can often be this person that has fear. Like they just have so much fear in their life, they want to project it onto you. You know what I'm saying? Like you can just be talking, and you're talking about vacation. You're like, oh, you're going on vacation? Oh, you're going to fly? You're like, what plane are you going to be on? What's the safety record? I don't know. It's a 737. I don't think those are safe yet. I don't think I get on one of those. You're like, well, when we get there, we're gonna have a lot of fun. What are you doing? We're snorkeling. Remember Steve Irwin in the Stingray? I don't know if I would. You're like, I don't need that in my mind. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you want me to do? Stay home? Well, there's actually a pretty high likelihood that the TV on your wall could fall off and start a fire. You're like, what do you want me to do? Right? You've been around these people. Like, they're afraid of everything, and they want to attach it to you. And the Bible calls it a spirit of fear that attaches itself. And if you're not careful, it'll attach to you, and you'll start having this filter, and everything you see in life you're afraid of. We need people of faith. People are going to say, no, I know you haven't seen it yet, but I'm believing God with you. Like, I'm not leaving. I'm not jetting when things get hard. Like, I'm in it. I'm like, we're here. I'm with you. Like, I'm going to believe alongside of you. Tony Elisa, one of the guys on our team, we were texting a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, "Man, how you doing? How can I pray for you?" And we were just again just a sort of a surface text. And I said, if I can be honest with you for a second, man, like the sun hasn't been out like in weeks, and I don't know about you, but like, man, that seasonal affected us where sometimes I'm just like, I don't care how cold it is, like, can I just see some sun, Lord, please? Like, I need some sun. I was like, I could just use a little bit of encouragement. If you could pray for me with that, man, I'm just kind of down right now. And he's like, man, I'm praying with you. And then for the next several weeks, he just started sending me scriptures, believing, right there alongside of me. Scriptures like this, Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong and courageous. You need somebody around you, right, that's going to have faith whenever you need a little extra, right? Be strong and courageous. Whatever you're going through, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them. Come on, you need people like this. For the Lord your God goes with you. How many people in your life do you have around you that are reminding you of that? Wherever you are, whatever's going on, the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave, and he'll never forsake you. You need people of faith. They're not afraid. No. We're going to take that mountain together. Like, I believe God's got something in you, and I'm going to walk this thing out with you. I don't know how God's going to do it, but we're going to do it together. Why? What is faith? Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. Now, faith is confidence. Isn't that great? I think so often in our faith, we're afraid. Oh, I just hope. God, would you please? No. Faith is confidence. It's confidence on what we hope for, an assurance of that which we do not see. And you need people that some days they walk alongside you and like, you can have a little bit of my confidence. You can have a little bit of my encouragement. And we need to be that for the people that are around us as well. Amen. Come on, every one of us has a next step to take when it comes to this area of boundaries. There might be some conversations that you're needing to have. There might be some difficult boundaries you're needing to set up. Man, I'm thinking of Jonathan whenever he's looking across this massive gap, this cavern, and he's like, "We're gonna go take on this army." And he's talking to his armor bearer, and the armor bearer is like, "You mean like me and you and the whole army?" "No, just me and you, bro." And what does the armor bearer say? "I'm with you, heart and soul." Like, come on, like if God's with us, we can take out that army. We don't need all these guys. Like, I'm with you. You need those people. Can we just agree life's too hard to not have that? You've got to set up some boundaries and steward the one soul that God has given you. What's some next steps that you are needing to take? A boundary could be transformational in your life. It could be transformational for somebody else. Regardless of what's going to happen to them, trust God enough to set it up. Now, some of you are like, if I set up these boundaries, like I've got nobody left. Fear and negativity and control, I'm out of people, which is one of the reasons why you need to be in an echo group. Because we're going to stock it full of people of faith and encouragement and life-giving nature. Like you need those people around you. You still got time, right? Join a group. Get some people around you. Some of you today, your next step is actually to let Jesus in. Maybe you came here today because you were just sort of hanging by a thread of hope. Maybe your next step is to actually enter into a relationship with Jesus, because the thing you've kept on the outside for far too long is Him. And what Jesus wants to do is He actually wants to come into your life and get the mud off, get the failure, get the faults, get the guilt, get the shame off of you so you can live fully into the future that He has for you. Jesus marched up to the cross and died to take your sins, to take your punishment. He rose up from the dead to give you a new start and a new life. Maybe you walked in today, you're just heavy. There's just this weight on you. Maybe you've never started a relationship with Jesus. Maybe you've been away. You're like, it's time to come back. I need the grace. I need the peace. I need the hope that comes from a relationship with Jesus. You're one prayer away. Here in just a moment, we're going to pray. I'm going to give you an opportunity. On the count of three, I'm going to invite you to raise your hand. Our eyes will be closed, heads bowed. It's for you to tell God, Lord, I need your help. I'm a sinner in need of a Savior, and I need you. I want to encourage you. Some of you, that's your next step today. Don't let anything hold you back. Right now, in this moment, decide, that's me. Today's my day. I'm going to walk out of here knowing I have a relationship with the God of the universe. Would you pray with me? Father, we love you. Lord, we thank you. Lord, we're so grateful to a kind and generous and all-knowing, all-powerful God. God, you love us enough to walk right where we are. Clean us up, move us on to the best you have for us. God, you even go beyond us. When you start walking in faith with you, you go far beyond anything we could ever do on our own. And so, God, today we need to get some things straight with you. Maybe you've got some boundaries you need to set up, and today you just need to say, God, I need your help. God, I need to have that conversation, but I'm afraid. God, I need to set this boundary, but I've got this what-if question. Would you just hear God say, I'm with you. I'm going to encourage you. You don't have to be afraid of man. You can trust me. And when you put your trust in me, I'm going to be with you every step of the way. I will empower you. I will build your faith. I'll give you life. Do you trust him? Do you just tell him that right now? God, I trust you. Maybe you just need to tell God right now, I'm going to put this boundary up. It's a boundary of control. It's a boundary of negativity. It's a boundary of fear. God, I'm putting it up today. God, I need your help. Walk with me. As we continue to pray, if this is your moment to begin a relationship with Jesus, to believe that what he said, that all of us have sinned, all of us have fallen short of the glory of God, but the gift of God is Jesus. We get a brand new start in him. If today's your day to begin a relationship with Jesus, I'm going to invite you right now on the count of three to raise your hand up and say, today's my day. I want to know that I'm forgiven of all my past and all my sins, all my failures. And I get a new start and a new beginning. If that's you today, on the count of three. One, come on, don't wait. Two, three. Just raise it up. If that's you, today's your day. Begin a life-saving, life-giving relationship with Jesus. It's wonderful. If that's you, put your hands down. You can just pray with me. Would you pray this simply? Lord, thank you. Just tell him that in your own heart. You don't have to pray it out loud. God, thank you for dying on the cross for me. Lord, for my sins, I believe you took the shame so I didn't have to. And God, I believe that in this moment of receiving you as my Lord and my Savior, that I am forgiven forever. God, that in believing that you rose up from the dead, that I get that new life in me as well. God, from this day forward, God, fill me up. God, fill me up that I can walk with you faithfully each and every day. God, we ask that you would empower us this week. God, I pray we'd have a little bit of Hebrews 11 in us. God, we'd have some faith with confidence. God, some faith with assurance. Lord, we wouldn't walk into these situations and relationships with fear and worry. No, we'd walk into them with power and with grace, knowing, God, that you're already working ahead of us. God, you're going behind us. You are with us every step of the way. Lord, we thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Hey, we love to celebrate when people are taking some next steps. Whether you prayed in your heart or you raised your hand. Come on, let's celebrate that together. Put our hands together. Come on. Come on.